Hello everyone, and welcome back to English Fix Lab, the place where real English sounds like a conversation, not a classroom. I'm Emily, and I'm here with my friend Paul, and today we are doing something that is going to completely change the way you think about the past tense in English. Not the boring way, not the textbook way, the way real people actually use it every single day without even thinking about it. Because here is the truth that most English teachers will never tell you. You already know how to tell a story. You already know how to share a memory. You already know how to describe something that happened. You just need the right English words to do it. And that is exactly what we are going to give you today. So stay with us, because by the end of this conversation, you are going to feel something shift. Paul, are you ready? I am so ready, Emily, and I want to say something before we start. A lot of people watching right now have probably tried to learn the past tense before. Maybe they read a grammar book, maybe they did exercises with blank spaces to fill in, and maybe it worked for a little while, but then the moment they tried to have a real conversation, everything disappeared. The rules vanished. The words felt wrong, and they ended up saying nothing at all. I know that feeling. I had that feeling when I was learning another language years ago. And the reason it happens is not because you are bad at learning. It is because nobody taught you the past tense through real stories, real moments, real life. And that is what today is about. Exactly, Paul. So let's start right now with the most natural thing in the world. A morning. Think about this morning. Think about what you did from the moment you opened your eyes. That moment right there, that tiny, ordinary morning, is actually a perfect past tense story waiting to be told. For example, this morning I woke up at 7 o'clock. I made coffee. I sat by the window and I watched the street outside. Nothing dramatic, nothing exciting, but every single one of those words, woke, made, sat, watched, is past tense. And I used all of them naturally because I was just describing my morning. That is the secret. The past tense is not a grammar rule. It is the language of your own life. And here is what I love about that, Emily. When you said you sat by the window and watched the street, I immediately pictured you there. I saw the coffee cup. I imagined the morning light. The past tense does not just describe what happened. It builds a picture. It creates a scene. It puts the listener right there with you in that moment. And that is the power that most grammar books completely ignore. They teach you the mechanics, but they never teach you the magic. So let's talk about both. Let's start with something that happened to me last week that I think a lot of people will relate to. Please tell me everything, Paul. What happened? So last week I decided to cook something special for dinner. I had seen a recipe online that looked beautiful, pasta with a rich tomato sauce and fresh basil. I went to the market in the morning. I bought all the ingredients. I came home feeling very confident. And then I started cooking. The water boiled. The pasta went in. The sauce was on the stove. Everything smelled incredible. And then my phone rang. I answered it. I talked for maybe 10 minutes. And when I came back to the kitchen, the sauce was completely black. I burned it. Not a little bit. Completely. The whole kitchen smelled like a disaster. Oh no, Paul. What did you do? I did what any reasonable person would do. I opened all the windows, I threw the pot in the sink, and I ordered food from the restaurant around the corner, and honestly, it was the best meal I had that week. So the pasta I cooked went in the bin, and the pasta I ordered made me very happy. I love that story. And do you notice something? Paul just told that entire story in the past tense. He said decided, had seen, went, bought, came, started, boiled, went in, smelled, rang, answered, talked, came back, was, burned, opened, threw, ordered. Every single verb is describing a completed action, something that happened and finished. That is the simple past tense in its most natural form. It is not complicated when it lives inside a real story. It only feels complicated when it sits alone on a page in a grammar book. That is such a good point, Emily. And I want to add something about those verbs I used. Some of them were regular verbs, like opened, like ordered, like talked. For regular verbs, you simply add ed to the end. Opened, ordered, talked, finished, cleaned, watched. These are the easy ones. But some of the verbs I used were irregular. Went, bought, came, rang. These do not follow the ed rule. They have their own special past forms that you need to learn individually. But here is the good news. The most common irregular verbs in English, the ones you will use every single day, there are not hundreds of them. There are maybe 30 or 40 that really matter. And once you know those 30 or 40, you can describe almost anything that has ever happened to you. And that is the key word, Paul, happened. Because everything that happened to you is a story, and every story you tell in English will use the past tense. Your first day at school, the time you got lost in a new city, the moment you met someone who changed your life, the meal that tasted so good you still think about it, the trip you took that made you see the world differently. All of those moments, all of those memories, all of those experiences are waiting to be told, and the past tense is the only tool you need to tell them. So right now, before we go any further, we want to hear from you. Think of one memory, just one. It does not have to be dramatic. It can be small and simple. And write it in the comments below. Write it in English, in past tense, exactly as if you were telling a friend. We will read every single comment. And if you are enjoying this conversation so far, please give the video a like and share it with someone who is also learning English. It really does help more people find us. Now, Paul, I want to go back to your cooking story for a second because there is something in it that we have not talked about yet. You said the sauce was completely black. You used the word was. And that small word was is one of the most important words in the entire English language when we talk about the past. Was and were. These are the past forms of the verb to be, and they do something slightly different from action verbs. They do not describe what you did. They describe what something was like. The state of something, the condition, the feeling, the appearance. So when Paul said the sauce was black, he was not describing an action. He was describing a state, a condition. That is, was doing its quiet, essential job. And that job is everywhere, Emily. I was tired. The room was small. They were happy. We were late. The weather was perfect. These sentences describe states in the past, and they are just as important as action sentences. Actually, let me tell you about the morning I arrived in a completely new country for the first time, because that story is full of both actions and states, and I think it will show you exactly how they work together. I was 23 years old. I had one bag, one small dictionary, and about 50 words of English in my head. I landed at the airport early in the morning, and the first thing I noticed was the noise. Everything was loud and fast and completely unfamiliar. People were moving in every direction. Signs were everywhere. Announcements came through the speakers, and I understood almost nothing. I stood in the middle of the arrivals hall, and I just stopped. I could not move. Not because I was physically stuck, but because, for the first time in my life, I felt completely invisible. Like I existed, but I could not communicate. Like I had thoughts and feelings and a whole personality inside me, but none of it could get out, because the words were not there yet. Oh, Paul, that feeling. I know exactly what you mean. That silence inside when you have so much to say, but the language is not there to carry it. It is one of the loneliest feelings in the world. It really is. But then something happened. A woman at an information desk looked at me. She saw me standing there with my bag and my confused face, and she walked over. She did not wait for me to come to her. She came to me. And she said very slowly, very clearly, "Can I help you?" And those 4 words changed everything. Not because they solved my problem immediately, but because they reminded me that language is not about being perfect. Language is about connection. She wanted to connect with me, and in that moment I found 3 words in my head. I am lost. And I said them, and she smiled. And we figured it out together. I found my way. I got on the right train. I arrived at the right address. And I sat down on a small bed in a small room, and I cried a little bit, not from sadness, but from relief, from the feeling of having survived something hard. That story gave me chills, Paul. Genuinely. And what I want our listeners to notice is this. Look at all the past tense in that story. Landed, noticed, came, stood, stopped, felt, said, changed, reminded, found, got, arrived, sat, cried. Every single one of those verbs is carrying emotion. Every single one of those verbs is doing two jobs at the same time. It is describing what happened, and it is making you feel something. That is the real power of the past tense. It is not just grammar. It is the architecture of human experience. It is how we make other people feel what we felt. It is how we share our lives. And I think that is why so many learners feel frustrated when they study the past tense from a textbook. Because a textbook gives you the structure, but it never gives you the feeling. It teaches you that go becomes went, but it never shows you what went feels like when it carries a real story. I went to a country where I knew nobody. I went to a hospital when I was scared. I went back to my hometown after 10 years away. Each of those sentences has the same verb, but each one feels completely different, because the feeling comes from the story around the verb, not from the verb itself. So the fastest way to truly learn the past tense is to surround yourself with real stories told by real people, which is exactly what you are doing right now, just by listening to this conversation. So let's keep going. Emily, I want to ask you something personal, and I want our listeners to really pay attention to how you tell this story, because I think it will teach them more in 2 minutes than most grammar lessons teach in an hour. Tell me about a moment in your past when you were genuinely afraid of something. Not a big dramatic fear, just a real human ordinary moment of being scared. Okay. I will tell you one that still makes me laugh now, even though it was not funny at the time. A few years ago I signed up for a swimming class. I was an adult. I was in my late 20s, and I could not swim, not even a little. I could not even float. And I signed up because I was tired of being the person on the beach who stayed on the sand while everyone else was in the water. So I went to the first class. The pool was cold. The other people in the class were mostly children, small children, like 7 and 8 years old. And there I was, a grown adult woman standing in the shallow end, holding the side of the pool while the children were already kicking their legs and splashing around with complete confidence. I wanted to disappear. I can picture this so perfectly. What happened next? The instructor came over to me. She was young, maybe 20 years old, very calm, very kind. And she said, "Do not look at them. Look at the water. The water is the same for everyone." And something about those words unlocked something in me. I let go of the side. I put my face in the water, I kicked my legs, and I moved. It was not elegant, it was not smooth. I probably looked like a confused cat trying to escape a bath. But I moved through the water. And at the end of that lesson, I swam the full width of the pool. One time, slowly, terribly, but completely. And I stood on the other side of that pool, and I felt like I had crossed an ocean. That is one of my favorite stories you have ever told me, Emily, and I want to highlight something for everyone listening. Emily used the phrase she said, past tense of say, said. And the words that followed, do not look at them, look at the water. The water is the same for everyone. Those words are in reported speech. When we tell a story, and we include what someone said to us, we use said followed by the exact words or a description of them. He said he was tired. She said the class was starting. They said the restaurant was closed. Said is one of the most useful verbs in storytelling because stories are full of conversations, and conversations need said to come alive on the page and in speech. And there is something else I want to point out. Emily said she felt like she had crossed an ocean. That phrase, felt like, is past tense of feel. Feel becomes felt. And it is a phrase that connects an action to an emotion. I felt happy. I felt nervous. I felt like the world had changed. When you use felt in your stories, you do not just describe what happened. You describe the inner experience of what happened. And that inner experience is what makes a listener truly connect with you, because facts tell people what occurred, but feelings make people care about it. Exactly. And caring is everything in language. When someone cares about your story, they listen more carefully, they remember it longer, they ask you questions, they tell you their own story in return, and suddenly you are not practicing grammar anymore. You are just talking. You are just connecting. You are just being human together in a language that started as foreign and slowly, quietly, beautifully became yours. That is what the past tense gives you when you truly own it. It gives you the ability to share who you are, where you came from, what shaped you, what scared you, what made you laugh until your face hurt, what made you sit on a small bed in a foreign country and cry with relief. It gives you your history in a new language. And your history is worth telling. Keep practicing every day. Come back to us every week, and we will keep building this together. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We will see you in the next conversation.